and welcome to the IR4 podcast. It's Tuesday, which means we have a free coin market review just for you. And of course, we will be hosting a new podcast that goes out this Thursday. This is actually going to be the free week as well, really beautifully timed. So all of you will also be receiving the copy of this week's podcast interview with options expert Michael Thompson as we talk about binary options, cryptocurrency and gambling, the future and the past of stock options, and potentially any derivatives that might get added to the crypto market. Pretty exciting stuff. So let's go hop on first and foremost to Big Daddy Bitcoin, ticker symbol BTC USD, and for some reason TradingView is going a little bit slow for me right now. But hopping over to Coinbase, and it is down 2% today. A little bit of an interesting range right now, as this particular candle that we're seeing is a little bit of an evening star reversal pattern right about there. So decent little evening star. The moving averages, we are below them at the present moment in time, and this is the daily chart. The other interesting proponent is we did break below the 100 simple moving average. So here's the 100 simple on the daily chart. So that acted as a nice little resistance here. You got an inside day candle on the 15th of May, which was acting as indecision. We made a new low, retest that new low, and kind of continue a little bit lower. So my thoughts are, again, hopefully this is worst case scenario, but we trade down to the 6,700 region is pretty feasible. Don't know if that'll actually happen or if that's exactly what will happen, but it looks like it could. Here's the weekly chart. And the interesting thing on the weekly is you do have the 50 EMA at 7,600, which we did bounce off very nicely previously, and we had some interactions with that, but the last time we did just kind of roll right through it. And what is going to be relatively interesting to keep an eye on is, of course, this kind of triangle forming. So if I look at just the candles and really stretch it out, so you have some higher lows that really can be synced in from back here. You have this as a potential angle, and then you have this as a potential angle. But we do have a series of lower highs. Now these lower highs aren't connected with anything yet, but you do have a lower high here, 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 and here at the present moment. But we also have a higher low right there. So this will be an interesting next few weeks to months as we likely continue to chop around. We probably do see a little bit more of some lows come in, most likely. And with this trend line holding up, it makes sense that we go a little bit lower on Bitcoin. But really, this is the main angle that I think we should return back to at some level, which would be a little bit above 4,000. And ironically, again, this is all worst case scenario. Ironically, long-term moving averages right about there, 4,300. So I would love to see it actually get down to there. If it does, that would just be a very healthy move. We'll just have to see. On the daily chart, it seems to me that we're going to just chop around a little bit more, trade sideways a little bit more. I do kind of like this lower high that kind of connects right here. A little bit of a trend line like that, and then you have some semblance of a support resistance into this region right here, kind of a little bit of a descending triangle. So if this descending triangle does break down, we could get a pretty interesting and significantly nice move down into that area. And again, if we break out lower, we're going to go to 4,000 almost for sure. So that's my big analysis on Bitcoin. And of course, the way Bitcoin moves, most other coins will be moving that way. Ethereum, a few of you saw some pretty exciting posts from me on Ethereum recently, and I just really like this technical chart. So let's look at the weekly. And the weekly chart, you do have an absolutely perfect pennant pattern here on the weekly. So you got some higher lows, got lower highs 3 weeks in a row. It's a pretty big deal. And you do have some really good support resistance down here. Obviously, 100 simple on a weekly is at 283. And I mean, again, folks, we did go up very high, very fast. That's a 100% gain. So something like this makes tons of sense to me with a quick drop, shaking out some of the bears who got on a little bit too eagerly, maybe down to 519, 520. That's really a decent range where we should bounce. If we don't bounce into that range, which would be about a 68% retracement of that main wave, we probably will come back down to the 370 to even 270 range. All of those are certainly possibilities. So that's Ethereum. Here's the daily time frame. And we are above the long-term moving averages, so I really did like that. I liked this morning star reversal pattern that we started making some higher lows and higher highs. Also, here's one of our patrons, Mr. Brian Weber, is posting some Ethereum postings right here. So he's mentioning this is kind of on the 240-hour time frame on Ethereum, a big, nice little triangle. So we'll see if we start getting some buying here relatively soon on just the overall cryptos. We've had a few decent days in a row of some selling, but I do think we could come down and flash down kind of ever so quietly into these 50 EMA areas on the weekly and then likely see a pop. That's what I'm expecting and keeping an eye out for. Now, some of the other ones, here's Tron, TRON. So let's go look at Tron Bitcoin. And Tron, here's the daily chart, is actually holding up relatively well. So Tron had some beautiful moves here in April, had a very nice, very comfortable retracement, and the last 2 or 3 days, a pretty good pop with some good volume. So Tron Bitcoin, you could be looking at picking some of that up on this little retest, this little neckline. EOS going to have some really big, interesting events coming up in the next few days and weeks, and we're getting some pullbacks on EOS. So here's the weekly chart, and really have to zoom in pretty strongly for the weekly. But you had, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 white candles in a row on EOS, Bitcoin on the Kraken exchange. So yeah, it could rotate back down to this 0.0012. I think that makes sense. Come back to a daily time frame and just look at the long-term moving averages again. Huge Goliath move, 300% return in the last month on your Bitcoin positions, right? Because you're buying it with Bitcoin. That's a massive move. So yeah, I think we're going to have a little bit of a rotation lower. Obviously, best case scenario on some of these cryptos is we do put in a little bit of a double bottom, but that needs to start happening sooner rather than later in order for some of these really good pops to kind of hang with it. Here's Dash, and Dash Bitcoin, DSH, turn these drawings back on. So this one breaking through a little bit of my support line right here where I was picking up some, and this one could trade all the way back down to 0.35, right? That is certainly possible. But here's the weekly chart, and you just see, I mean, you're at the bottom of a channel, so I guess it's, obviously it could break down and go much lower. 0, of course, being the absolute lowest that this ratio could go. But if you have Dash, here's the Dash US dollar, ticker symbol USD on Kraken, it's also down 4%. Dash really struggling a little bit because there's no massive support for it at the moment. Looking at this chart on the daily, it looks relatively on the weaker side, and expecting some of that to break lower, trading into this 287, worst case scenario. But this is, again, where we were just at. So you had some good moves. They were quick, short-lived. And again, most of the markets, most of these coins looking like we're going to get a little bit of a lower low to come in. And then the big question will obviously be, will we stop there? And how patient do we need to be to hold through some of those? So here's that trend line, something like this. And then here's a really good support on Dash US dollar right about there, about that 300 mark. So yeah, I still, if we go back to some of the videos and reviews I did back in this time frame, I was thinking things could get a little bit worse before they get a little bit better on some of these coins. And obviously this could happen, right? These are all just worst case scenarios, but I like to plan for worst case scenario so that when it happens, I'm ready for it. But in the same instance, you have an understanding and a setup for how low you could look to buy some of these if you're looking at accumulating. Because again, a lot of these haven't been around for quite some time. So if Litecoin breaks lower, I mean, I would love Litecoin in the below triple digits. I think it could easily get down to $89 and some change relatively soon. We'll see if that happens. Some beautiful volume coming in. Again, just an absolute gorgeous trend. Here's your long-term moving averages on the weekly, which they haven't even been formed yet, right? So we haven't even had 100 weeks of data on Litecoin, if that helps you feel how new this still is. So, bottom line, things look a little bit more red. Right now with some of these trends, we would absolutely be looking for some type of good bullish candle to come in soon if it's going to happen. But my thoughts, more likely we get a nice little flush lower on some of these coins, and then we will see some rallying. Let's look at 2 or 3 more. So here's Monero, and Monero US dollar on Bitfinex is also just kind of a decent little trend. This is the weekly chart as well, and here's the daily chart. So Monero about to come down to a support into this $164 range. So you can see obvious support level there. Big old resistance, new support. So yeah, it makes sense that we're going to trade down into that price. Weekly chart looks good. Exponential moving averages, you're at the 50 on the weekly. So we'll just have to see how much more oomph this one has. And last but not least is your stellar lumen, XLM USD. And we can pull that up on Kraken, down 3% today. Honestly, a pretty easy channel to play, which is exciting, right? This is really fun because this market, just like any other market, is brand new. You got a gorgeous resistance here. You have a very nice support right about there. And if this bad boy breaks lower, trades back into that 20-cent range, that could be a spot where you look to buy low, sell high. That could happen in mid-June, and obviously you could get that 100% rally trading back up to that 45-cent level mark on stellar lumens. So interesting to keep an eye out for that. Likely could and probably will occur, and we'll be watching it closely. But anyway, that's really my update and my review. If you want to get the ones I post on Saturday, feel free to hop over to www.patreon.com/IR4 and click this beautiful button, become a Patreon, nice little salmon color. I do post subscriber only reviews every single Saturday with kind of some more specific trade setups and things of that nature. And obviously we have a new podcast with no commercial breaks every single Thursday. And the most recent one was Future of Clean Energy podcast number 32. So this is 33 weeks in a row with consistent, really exciting, good content with some solid intel. So friends, traders, fans, followers, crypto nerds and hodlers from around the world, thanks so much for tuning in. Have a great rest of your day. I will see a lot of you on Tuesday. And until then, remember, love, live, learn. You all rock. Bye.